Today's guest has cracked the code to male attractiveness.
By looking good, they're going to assume that you get paid better, you're cooler, you're funnier. You could say a bad joke, but if you're good looking, she'll laugh. But if you were ugly, she probably wouldn't.
Born in the ruins of the Syrian revolution, he escaped with his family to Lebanon to avoid persecution. Growing up, he was bullied in school for his appearance, which fueled his obsession with self-improvement.
I was teased for certain things like my skin, my eye bags. Was I able to improve these things? Yes. Did it help my life? Yes. But not as much as...
His unrecognizable transformation has gained him millions of fans online, where he shares details of his journey and teaches the step-by-step process he used to maximize his looks.
There are other things that you could do that are quite effective, that you could do today, tomorrow, this week, to get immediate results.
In this episode, we'll discuss the science behind physical attraction, the importance and effects of optimizing one's look, and the dark side of dating in today's social media-fueled world.
If being a provider is bare minimum, what's going to differentiate you from the other guy? Looks. It's the only thing money cannot buy, and it's the only thing that...
Kareem, Shami. Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Thanks, Jack. Couldn't have said it better. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So Kareem, in the past 3 years, there's been a trend online of men focusing on improving the way they look. What is this trend, and why do guys care so much about their looks in 2025?
Because they have no choice but to do so. And they're invisible amongst other guys that they're competing with. And they're feeling this through the way they're being treated. And so when they watch my content, they're able to relate on another level. And they're able to slowly understand that looks can change the quality of your life. It's night and day. When you're constantly scrolling on your For You page and you're seeing these people that are getting careers out of nowhere for the way that they look, or they're able to pull certain girls from just the way that they look, or they're getting respect, a higher pay, better academics, opportunities. All of that seems to stem from one thing, and it's looks. What makes one guy better than the other guy if they both have the same personality and they both have money? What's gonna differentiate them from one another? What's something that's priceless and rare? Good genes and the dedication to maximize those genes.
So it's kind of your belief, if I'm getting this right, that this has always kind of been a thing, that looks are important for both men and for women. But recently there's a trend in the past few years of this thing called Looksmaxxing, where guys are taking it to an extreme almost because they're being made aware of it by social media, and social media is making it more competitive to date women. It's making it more competitive to like go viral, start a business online. And you would say that those are the main factors that are contributing to the recent success or rise of Looksmaxxing.
There's a lot of factors. Looking good will impact your life on every single level. And we can talk about, the intricacies and how it can affect you in your workspace and your love life. But generally speaking, as you mentioned, back then looks didn't matter as much. Yeah, like 300 years ago, if you were fat and you were considered wealthy and attractive as a guy. And now that's changing. But we have to stick with the times. And nowadays it's becoming normalized for girls to not just have standards when it comes to a guy providing, but also the way a guy looks. Now we're no longer competing locally. We're competing on a global scale. You're not just competing with our options that are in the area. You're competing with our options on the phone, which gives you connections with everyone in the world. And that's hypergamy on another scale.
So when you say competing, you mean both in the dating market and in business and in terms of doing well on social media, perhaps?
I mean, we can talk about like the halo effect, like the benefits a guy can receive in day-to-day interactions with strangers from being a lot more presentable. But if we're talking solely about girls, the biggest impact we're going to see is how relationships are nowadays.
So explain this concept to me of hypergamy. What is hypergamy, and why does it make men want to focus on getting money, looking better, and how does social media tie into all this?
That's a good question. Hypergamy is a concept that's been part of human nature for ages. It's the idea of just reaching for your best option, going for the partner that's the prettiest, the best looking, the richest, the wealthiest, the one of the most resources, whatever it is, you're reaching for something better than you. And hypergamy has always been this sort of quiet thing until recently. And I'll tell you why. Back then, it was constricted within walls. When a girl, we're really talking about girls here, when she were to reach out for her options, she would look around her, in her workspace, in her neighborhood, in her village, in the walls of where she was at, in the country that she was in. So they were stuck with options. And then when you have the internet and social media come in, those walls are gone. And when those walls are gone, suddenly we're taking localized hypergamy. And suddenly that girl all the way in Indiana, buttfuck Indiana, right? She doesn't have that many options. Now she can connect with guys in LA, Florida, Saudi Arabia. She can slide into anyone's DMs and anyone can slide into her DMs. So what happens now? We're competing with everyone. And when we're in somewhere like the West, it's even worse. Looksmaxxing is an even bigger requirement, because in the West, girls are taught to be independent, and they are independent. Hey, there's relationships out there where they're splitting the bill 50-50. And money becomes normalized through social media as well. Like we're seeing rich people left and right. So what happens is, one, the top pretty girls have a standard of a guy being wealthy. Boom, now you have to have money. Two, girls don't care about money because they're young and they have their own money. They work their own jobs in the West. Three, what's the next thing that's going to differentiate guys if they're all providers to them? If being a provider is bare minimum, what's going to differentiate you from the other guy? What is it? Looks. It's the only thing money cannot buy, and it's the only thing that you need to dedicate yourself to. And even then, will your genes suffice? Of course, personalities can make or break a relationship and whether or not she's interested in you. But before all that, she's going to see a couple things, and she's going to see, one, how you look and where you're at in your life. And if everyone is expected to be top and she doesn't care about that either, so it's like either the girl really cares about money and that's bare minimum, or she's just like everyone else at her age, young age, that doesn't care about money and she has her own money. Now what is she looking at? Your personality? You cannot tell a person's personality from pictures or seeing them in the first few seconds. All they can judge you on is the way you look. And that's why if we look at dating apps, what do we see? We see the average match rate for a guy, the average guy, being that of 1%. The average guy is matching with nothing. I think there's like a bunch of case studies out there.
Yeah, I had one case study here on the dating apps. Let me see. There was a guy named Hayden. He was 26, and he swiped 2,020,459 times over 5 years on Tinder. He got 2,000 matches and managed to just get one in-person date from all of that.
That's actually insane, because you're saying 5 years and he got only one person date from that.
After 2 million swipes.
After 2 million swipes, in 5 years, he got one date, in-person date. That is clear indicator, proof that hypergamy exists. And you can sit here and say, oh, it doesn't matter, right? That's dating apps. I'm not going to be on dating apps. Screw dating apps. I'm not about that life. But 70% of relationships are meeting online. That's now, that's today. It wasn't like that a few years ago. So it's only going to get worse. Connections are being formed online. So your online profile is going to consist of what? Your money, your job? No, it's going to consist of how you look. And that's why Looksmaxxing is so important.
It's really interesting because when women usually meet men, like they do things like pay for a date, they try to pay for the stuff, and they kind of have this assumption over time that the guy's just going to have money. And the ones that reach out to them, like guys lie, they always say that they have money, they kind of imply it, you know? But looks, like women see a lot of men and they know that looks are scarce. So that's another aspect of it too.
Oh yeah, I mean, you cannot buy looks. As I mentioned, that is something that you are born with and then you maximize. You cannot buy looks. So you can definitely work your way up. You can make money. That's good. You can improve your status. You can go about your presentation with that money. But like the bigger thing here is, aside from health indicators, right? Because if you look good, you're going to look healthy. And if you're healthy, you're a much better mate, you could say. So it really just comes down to whatever makes you have competitive advantage. And that is one of them, just having looks down.
Would you say that the typical average looking person or below average looking person that isn't conventionally attractive, would you say that person is unhealthier than a good looking person?
They can appear so. Yeah, and usually, if they're recessed or they have like a specific issue like skin condition.
Recessed?
Yeah, I mean, if their skull isn't developed properly or to the fullest extent that it should have, because they weren't eating right when they were younger, or they had bad habits, bad posture, whatever it is, it could appear in many forms. Like it could be like sunken eyes, for instance, or bad skin. If they have very bad nutrition, that would show on their skin. They would have stress showing on their skin. And that's obviously not a good sign for a guy to have stress being shown. And if their hair is like receding, that's also a sign of stress.
So biologically, you're kind of saying women or men look for healthy partners so they have healthy children, better chance of survival.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there's more science to it, like girls being scientifically attracted to guys with broad shoulders and stuff. But then there's like the small stuff that kind of makes sense, like the stressed out skin. That is an indicator right then and there. Eye bags, that all of those things are linked with what if someone's going through something stressful, someone's body is not in a good state, they're just gonna look sick. So by looking healthy, you're likely, I mean, not everyone who's healthy is gonna look good, right? But by being healthier, ideal body fat percentage, good skin, good hair, etc., you're gonna be a lot better partner.
So beyond dating, from your content, you've said things in the past about how your appearance can impact your career, your income, the respect you get from others. What is the halo effect?
The halo effect is something interesting because it really gives you an idea of how people think psychologically and how people look at things. So essentially, by having a very positive trait down, in this case being your looks, people are likely so going to associate you with other positive traits. For instance, by looking good, they're going to assume that you get paid better, you're cooler, you're funnier, right? And that is something that's being thrown around right now. People saying, oh, guess who's the funny one? Or like in videos, they'll say that. And they're referring to the guy who looks good. You could say a bad joke, but if you're good looking, she'll laugh. But if you were ugly, she probably wouldn't. That's kind of like the idea. Think of like putting on glasses. When you put on specs, it can make you look a lot more intelligent. Now take that idea and apply it to something as complicated as the face. When someone finds you attractive, chemical reactions are going off in the brain, they're looking at you, they like you. Suddenly, they're a lot more forgiving. They find you funnier. You know what I mean? So it is extremely powerful. So much so that we have like people making edits of serial killers. I don't know if you've seen like Ted Bundy was getting fan mail from girls just because of the way he looked.
Yeah, and I used to make crime content. It's super common for the guys to get fan mail, but I would say that the more attractive ones likely get more fan mail.
And not just that, he was able to collect more bodies. As bad as it sounds, like he literally was able to use his charisma. They call it charisma, but it's literally because of the way he looked. Jeremy Meeks. Do you know Jeremy Meeks?
That was like the model that looked really good.
The model that looked really good in what? His mugshot. He looked so good in his mugshot. They gave him a modeling contract and got him out of jail. Imagine that. And his mugshot went viral, so much so that he was signed with a modeling agency. And if you go ask the guy, if you go look at any interviews with the guy, he's like, you just got to work hard, man. Ridiculous.
So would you say that's pretty common that prisoners who are more attractive or people facing like court sentences, if they're more attractive, like people are more kind to them?
I mean, I don't know about prisoners because, what happens in there, their kindness is a little bit different. But I will say, yes, there is prejudice that's that you could see, like, for instance, like when they're getting the sentences from the judge. When the judge sees a guy who's attractive, it's going to be so hard for that prejudice. Like there's going to be a bias that goes off in her head. And it's going to have to come face to face with what she's looking at. Or he, like literally, like even if you're a guy, by looking at another guy who's attractive, a level of respect is there. So all these people in power, all these judges, these people that are, leaders, bosses, there's a bias that comes into play. And it does stem from the halo effect. And it's also a positive feedback, which it's a loop that we can talk about later. But essentially, when you're able to get away with certain things, and you're able to, say certain things, have more forgiveness from people because of the way you look, act a certain way, you're suddenly more confident. You're happier. The quality of your life goes up. Whereas it can work against you. The halo effect can work against you because if you're ugly, suddenly people think you're weird. You're this shy weirdo. You're a loser. You know what I mean? Maybe they won't call you a nerd, but like when a girl says, for instance, when she says she likes a nerd, she's actually talking about a good looking guy with glasses. That's also a funny one.
We had this guest on a podcast. His name is Roy Lee. He talked about the winner's effect. Like if you have one win early on in life, then you will continue to win in that way. Like if you, I don't know, sing for your family and they say, oh, you're such a good singer, then that person will likely just keep singing and actually develop the talent. But I would imagine that if someone has one day where they look really bad and they get treated poorly, then the next day they'll be less confident.
But imagine that day to day, what happens? Yeah. So not only are they called a weirdo, but they eventually become a weirdo. Like, it's like, okay, some guys, they'll know if they're attractive because they'll exhibit behaviors of an attractive guy. For one, they'll be more confident. They'll have self-esteem. There's no point in looking good if you don't have self-esteem. So eventually this builds up with experiences and time. As long as they're not like Aspie or neurodivergent, eventually they're going to build up this positive feedback loop. Whereas ugly guys, they get called weird. They get treated badly. Eventually they start to take it. Next thing you know they are actually weird. They are lacking in experiences. They are a virgin at 41.
So you're someone who had a pretty shocking transformation. How would you say you were treated when you looked average versus how would you say you're treated now that you've kind of worked on your look and are considered a very attractive guy?
So a lot of people like to think that I was below average back then. I mean, I know you said average right now, but a lot of people think that I was below average. I was never ugly. I did have insecurities. I did have issues. I did have concerns. I was teased for certain things like my skin, my eye bags, a lot of things. Was I able to improve these things? Yes. Did it help my life? Yes. But not as much as the outside rather than the inside. So I became more confident as a result. And with this confidence, I was able to expose myself furthermore, as in like, hey, I'm going to ask out that girl now because I don't have acne anymore. So things like that helped me out. But yeah, there is definitely a difference, a sheer difference between before and after, especially since that transformation took me 2 years and I've been maintaining it ever since the age of 18. So I started pretty late. The younger, the better, because as you develop, there's only so much that you could do after you turn 18. But yeah, I mean, it is night and day. And I can't even tell you, I've gotten used to it now.
So you lived in Lebanon before moving to California. Would you say people in the Middle East value looks less than in the West?
I think there's a misconstrued idea of how the Middle East functions. People think that like we're barbaric and we don't care about looks and we're all just about like money and oil and I don't know what. But no, looks are valued there. A lot of people ask me, oh, what does your dad think of these skincare TikToks that you make? My dad every morning woke up, shaved, put on aftershave, put on a suit, and did his hair before going to work. So Middle Easterners definitely understand this whole self-care Looksmaxxing thing. And you'd be surprised. But I will say this. Hypergamy works a little bit different there because what's desirable is not like out here. Why? Because as I mentioned in the West, girls in the West are now independent, right? They'll split the bill 50-50 happily. They're working more than guys nowadays, which is surprising. In the Middle East, it's not like that. So having money there is a lot more powerful than having money here. Also, over there, status is actually in play. You're not just a number. In the US, you're a number. Back home, you had your last name. You had your family. People knew where you were from, what your dad did, what your mom, you know what I mean? But out here, it's different. So there's a striking difference there, I would say, culturally. But there's still hypergamy.
A common belief of many women, at least in my experience, is that they don't really care about looks. They don't care about money. They just want a nice guy that treats them right with a good personality. Do you think personality really matters?
I think personality definitely matters. There's a misconception that this whole like Looksmaxxing ideology thing doesn't care for personality, but no, personality is right up there. It's just not as prioritized because people are extremely shallow and they're going to judge you in milliseconds. But I will say this, when girls say they want a nice guy, are they picturing a nice guy who's ugly? Come on, Jack. They're picturing a nice guy who has decent looks. When they say, I want a nice tall guy, they're picturing a guy who's tall but decent looking. That's why you have guys that are extremely tall, that are chopped, complaining about them not being able to pull. And the height that doesn't matter. But no, height does matter. And face matters. Everything matters, including personality.
Kareem, why do you specifically care about this cause so much for guys to improve their looks?
So people don't know this, but I moved to the US about 4 years ago from the Middle East. And before that, I lived in Syria for the majority of my life, 13 years. And then I moved to Lebanon. And when I moved to Lebanon, I had lost all my friends that I had in Syria. And there was instability in my family, financially and social-wise. Like all my family friends were gone, all my childhood friends, my childhood toys, everything. And so I was left with nothing but myself. And my older brother was too old for him to relate with me. You know what I mean? Like he was in a different stage in life and he was going to university. And I had just started going to high school and I had no one to guide me, no one to help me. And so when I finally moved out here and I started taking care of my looks as a result of realizing, connecting the dots and seeing how things are logically, understanding that, okay, this is what's happening. I tried the gym. It didn't work out. I had the body. Nothing really changed when it came to the respect that I was getting. Maybe some guys were giving me some respect, but it wasn't enough. And I oriented myself towards real methods that actually worked. And it paid off. And then I realized no one's talking about this. No one. Absolutely no one's posting about it. Only on like the deep forums will you find people talking about this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the older brother for everyone else the way I didn't have one when it came to this sort of stuff. And I started posting videos. And at first, didn't really care, didn't really matter. Only a couple of people were seeing it and I was giving them feedback. I was helping them out. And then it gained traction. The video blew up, 200, 300 million views on YouTube. Someone reposted it on YouTube, that's why. And then my actual TikTok got like 20, 30 million views. And everyone says that it kickstarted everything. It was my first transformation video. And then many more came out. And I did it to motivate people, to show them that, hey, you can improve the way that you look, and you can also do so with a very realistic mindset that looks matter.
So what makes someone attractive? Let's give it from the perspective of, you speak about this concept of appeal, and then there's also the concept in the Looksmaxxing community of something called PSL. Like I want to know what makes someone attractive in both of those.
Symmetry, good ratios. There's a lot that goes into it. The face is very complicated. At the end of the day, it's the mashup of features that look good together. So whether or not a face is appealing really comes down to, does this person look like a threat? Would you be comfortable with having your girl around that person? Right there. That's a good way for a guy to figure it out. But I would say it's also about experiences, seeing what girls have to say about certain guys. Realizing, okay, is this guy niche down to a certain group of girls, or is he attracting a broad range because he's conventionally attractive? Like you can tell certain things logically. The dumber you are as a person, the harder it is going to be for you to realize what's attractive and what's not.
So Kareem, before we go into the details of how someone can improve their looks, just encapsulate everything you've been saying. Why do you Looksmaxx?
That is a very, very big question. Why do I Looksmaxx? I Looksmaxx because I want to max out every single thing in my life. I want to live it to the fullest potential. And when I maximized my looks, I realized how big of a role it plays. For instance, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have collaborated with Jordan Barrett. I wouldn't be on that talk show in New York. I wouldn't have over 4 million followers. Of course, I'd still get there. But looks helped me accelerate that. I wouldn't be having nearly half the interactions that I have in my life with girls and guys. These opportunities wouldn't have come my way. The respect that I have, the respect from you, would be nowhere near the same. You could sit here and say, oh no, I'd still have respect for you. I'm not that shallow, but your subconscious says otherwise.
And then what do you say to people who are like, I think this whole thing is shallow. I don't care about my looks.
It's ironic because you're saying it's shallow, but people are shallow. So all I'm telling you to do is, hey, I'm giving you a warning. They're shallow. Do something about it.
So you're saying you don't have to be shallow to improve your looks. You just have to assume that other people are shallow.
It's not shallow. It's mindful. It's realistic. You're understanding that people are shallow. So it's ironic for a person to say, oh, you're just shallow. No, you're naive. All these millions of people that are saying, you know what, looks matter. They're wrong. What do you lose from improving your skin, from improving your hair? You know what I mean? Like, how much time is that going to take from your day? To sit down and realize, okay, let me do the 20% that's going to give me the 80% improvement. And we could talk about what those improvements are, like what you could easily do universally, things that are accepted that'll help you Looksmaxx. But is it really that hard to take care of yourself? And then, hey, if you don't see a difference in your day-to-day life, fine. Some people are content. Some people are fine. People want to take the blue pill. They don't want to improve. That's perfectly fine. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. I'm simply just showing you, hey, there's the other side. You can get there if you'd like to. You can maximize what you already have. If you don't want to maximize what you have, that's perfectly fine. If you just want to have one girl, you don't want to have respect from people, you want to continue making the salary that you're making, you don't want to have more opportunities, fine. But when there's people out there that are benefiting extremely well, guys in the top percentile, from just having their looks together, damn, it just feels like I'm missing out. Doesn't it feel like you're missing out?
So I think the viewers might be curious of this. And I asked Kareem if this was all right beforehand. He said he didn't want to do it because he never does it when other guys ask him. But what would you rate me on a scale from 1 to 10?
What scale are we talking about? Are we talking about like the Richter scale, the normie scale? Like what scale?
Attractive scale.
Like just the way you look? I give you like a 8 out of 10.
An 8 with this haircut?
Maybe like a 7 with the haircut. No,
I would say so.
I would say you're nearing 8. I'm not gonna lie. You're a tall guy, right? 6'1"?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, I think you're a good looking guy. I think that's a solid rating, but man,
and that's just the normal scale you're using, like what the average person might say?
I am talking from just like yeah, so that's the normie scale. We can get into complexities as to, you know, you don't want to know what the other side of the internet has something else to say, basically, because they're very conflicted. Some people will say, oh, this guy is like a 10 out of 10. Other people will say this guy is a 1 out of 10. You know what I mean? So
if we look at the Looksmaxxing community, they kind of have a different way of going about their scale. It's out of 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, something like that.
What would you say my scale would be on that? Because it would be a lot.
No, I have no idea. Like,
really?
Genuinely.
Okay. But what factors are they looking at versus like your average person?
Dude, it's like some of it is just dumb babies at the age of 13 that have just been exposed to it and they think they know what they're talking about. So they'll give you like a 3 and they'll say that you're sub 4 or whatever. Like, it depends on the person. But generally speaking, the PSL score takes into account your measurements, like your ratios and your width and your interpupillary distance and all that stuff. So it all comes down to like angles and measurements. So I'm not very fond of the PSL thing, but I do like the categories that they speak about, where you have like low tier normies, mid tier normies, high tier normies, and then you have like Chad Light and then Chad. So those are like different like scales of guys that fit into it. And
so would a Chad be like the equivalent to a 10 out of 10 or like a 9 out of 10?
There is no 10 out of 10.
Got it. So the highest rating you can get with Looksmaxxing is like 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10?
No. It's like 9.9. Like it exists, but like, man, like for someone to be like a 9.9 out of 10, you'd have to like basically be like near perfect, and no one's really perfect.
Who's like the most attractive guy according to that community?
I can't even tell you. There's like a lot of names.
I think Superman was one that I saw. The actor like Henry Cavill is like a guy that's pretty high up there.
Some people will say he's like perfect, but you know, everyone has a flaw. But yeah, I mean, you can say he's Chad. I like the categories more because it's a bit more broad. With something like a number, like not everyone agrees on that. So a good way to figure out where you kind of fit in is by posting yourself online on there, which I don't recommend. But like if you really want to find out, you'd post yourself on there anonymously, feedback in your rating or whatever, and you would just average that out. Of course, take it with a grain of salt. Everyone on there is pretty much hateful because of their situations, right? Everyone's envious. But yeah, that's like pretty much a way of finding out.
I was in this video a couple years ago. It was like the most attractive guy in the world versus like average looking guys. And we essentially had like 100 girls rate us. And I think I saw that video was posted on the forums you're talking about. And everyone was like, this guy's high tier normie at best. And then like people are like saying like low tier normie, all these things.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you probably went through all those, right? How'd it make you feel?
Well, it made me feel bad at first. And then I realized that like high tier normie was actually like pretty good.
Yeah. So it really depends on who's critiquing you. Like, is it someone who like really looks into details? So when someone who is very like, you know what I mean, and gives me a very harsh rating, it's very much understandable. When it's the average normie that's giving me a rating, it hits harder. Like if a girl tells me, oh, you're like a 6 out of 10, like it hits harder. But when it's coming from a guy who like literally sits down and rots all day in his basement looking at photos of guys and comparing me to models, okay, I understand why you think I'm a 6 out of 10. But yeah, a lot of people also, funny enough, call models Looksmaxxers when they literally are just born that way.
So what's the difference between just a really attractive person and a Looksmaxxer? An
attractive person, oftentimes, more so than not, are just born that way. Right? They barely do anything. And then nowadays, with like this whole thing going viral, Looksmaxxing going mainstream, we have these people that have always looked this way, but they're pretending to have been like chopped or something. So we have these people coming out in the space that naturally look good, but they're pretending to be chopped back then in order to amass a following. So that is a trend that we're seeing now with guys coming into the space. And it's funny, they used to call Jordan Barrett and Chico Lachowski Looksmaxxer. Like those guys, I promise you, don't know anything about Looksmaxxing. They were just born that way. They were picked out at the age of 16 to start modeling. So I'm not throwing shade at them, but I'm just saying like to call them Looksmaxxers is just funny. And it's usually just like 13-year-olds that are doing that.
Before we talk about the exact methods to improve your looks, how much would you say, like on a scale from 1 to 10, the average person can go up by? Do you think they can go up by a couple points? Do you think it's just 1 point? Like, and does this make a big difference on their life?
I think everyone, or for the most part, can improve by at least 1 point, maybe even 2, when it comes to features, facial features. When it comes to bone structure, of course, things that are limiting them on a craniofacial level, that's just pretty much stuck for everyone, especially after development. So there are universal things that they can do to improve, and we'll call that appeal, right? They can improve their appeal through things like improving their coloring, their body fat percentage, their posture.
Yeah, so on improving your looks, what's the most effective thing someone can do to improve their appearance?
I mean, this is going to sound a bit basic, but you know, lowering your body fat percentage. There are other things that you could do that are quite effective that you could do today, tomorrow, this week to get immediate results. But body fat percentage is going to be the biggest thing here, because nowadays with our diets being extremely high in calories and processed foods, you know, extremely high in calories and not satiating you well enough, it's a bit of an issue if you have high body fat, because it also covers your face's facial features. Your cheekbones aren't going to show if you have fat. And it really depends on how you carry body fat percentage. Some people at 15% body fat have a very full face, whereas other people are leaner. So you got to find that right body fat percentage and you want to stick to that. And once you stick to that, you'll understand, okay, this is what I can do for my face. But that's something that's universally accepted, getting leaner.
Does it make a big difference for you? Because I've known you for several months now, and I believe that you've lost a bit of weight. Like, how much of a difference would you say it really makes?
For me, not as much, because my body doesn't carry as much fat in my face. So for other people, it's night and day. One body fat percentage can change everything for them. My brother, he recently just cut down and it's changed his face entirely. So it all comes down to how you carry fat. Personally, by losing body fat, it didn't really change too much in my face, but my physique looks a whole lot better. So it depends.
Yeah, guys, I lost like 15, 20 pounds, something over the past few months. Would you say that my face, like you can see more of it, or am I kind of like you that I don't carry the fat in my face?
I could tell a bit of a difference, yeah. You looked a bit more bloated back then. I thought it was an issue back then. I thought it was an issue of like you having a lot of sodium actually.
Interesting.
And you told me that you've had some processed foods like every now and then.
Yeah, I definitely.
A lot of sushi.
I'm someone that I'm someone that doesn't carry, or like I carry fat pretty well in my body, but my face is like night and day. So like my body doesn't look that much skinnier necessarily. Like I'm not like chiseled abs now, but like my face definitely looks a lot different.
So everyone carries fat differently.
What can someone do today to improve the way they look?
Immediately getting down to your coloring. You know, what suits your face. If you look at yourself right now, you're very, very blonde. I mean, you said your hair was lighter before too. And so you have blue eyes. Some people out there have light hair and they haven't gotten to dyeing their eyebrows. That's something they could immediately do to increase density in that area.
Guys, I actually dyed my eyebrows because of what Kareem told me. I dyed them yesterday, just one shade darker. I also dyed my eyelashes too. But does it make any difference at all?
No,
like, what does it really do for you?
It adds contrast to your face, and that contrast gives your face like that sort of appeal. It really just comes down to colors smashing together, and you also have a tan that helps. So, you know, coloring isn't just about eyebrows and your hair. It could also be your skin. You could mess around with self-tanning. So I've messed around with all kinds of substances like self-tanners and beard dye kits. For those that are wondering like how you can, for anyone that's watching this, how you can like dye your eyebrows, you could just get a beard dye kit and use that instead. It's not that complicated. You don't have to go somewhere to get it done. Just go one shade darker. But yeah, so that's one thing that I've done in my past. I've also gone highlights in my hair. I've also gone a natural tan, and I've compared both. And I found that self-tanning is probably better just long-term when it comes to aging, because people talk about looksmaxxing, but they also forget about maintenance, right? You want to maintain your youth. That's very, very important. People don't care about that now because they're young, but once they get older, it's a bit of an issue. And to find out what colors work best for you, I highly recommend, you know, experimenting with apps. There's a bunch of apps out there that use AI, like Face App. That is an app right there that you could easily use, put your photos on there and play around with your coloring, change your hair color, your eyebrow colors, even your skin tone to figure out what matches you. And then from there, you'll know the direction that you want to go for. Do you want to be a vampire with dark hair and light eyes, or very warm, like the way you have blonde hair and a tan and blue eyes going on? So it really depends on what you like and also what makes you look better too. So that's something that you can instantly do amongst other things like debloating. That's another thing. And that's something that I've talked about extensively.
What's debloating?
So debloating is getting rid of bloat. And if you don't know what bloat is, it's why you look different in the morning and why you look different at night. It's your face dealing with lymphatic drainage and water retention. Those are two different pathways when it comes to bloating. And so this is why I created Debloat, my supplement, which we'll talk about in just a second. But with lymphatic drainage, we're talking about fluid that just gets stuck in your face from gravity. And there's a system that goes on with your cells where this leakage of extracellular waste, water, proteins, fats, everything, it gets stuck in your face. And you can get that out by exercising, getting up and moving, going to the sauna, sweating. That's all good. But to top that off, water retention is something people don't talk about. With diets nowadays being extremely high in sodium, what can we do about this? By increasing our potassium intake and also, of course, lowering the amount of processed foods we eat. 4 out of 5 people eat extremely processed foods every single day. And that stat is only going higher, especially out here in America. So to also further mitigate, you know, this impact that sodium has on our body, because sodium, what it does is it tells your body to retain water. And where does that water end up being retained? In the face. It makes you feel puffy. It makes you feel like trash. And so when you ingest more potassium, what you're doing is you're balancing that sodium-potassium ratio. And what potassium does is it tells your body to excrete more water. It basically counteracts the effects of sodium. And so by having a high potassium diet and eating less processed foods and taking supplements like Debloat or drinking drinks out there in the market that have electrolytes that are high in potassium, you're helping mitigate this bloat in your face.
So what's in your product Debloat that you have that's not just like a potassium supplement? Is there other stuff in it that you need to be taking in order to like debloat your face?
Yeah, debloat's entirely different compared to what's out in the market for debloating. A lot of the stuff we see out in the market is for gut issues, like for women, and it's usually in the form of gummies, which is entirely made up of sugar and barely any ingredients. So with Debloat, I specifically went with a powdered formula that's entirely custom with over 11 different ingredients. We're talking about beyond potassium, vitamin C, magnesium, and digestive enzymes to further help with that gut issue and to further digest foods that are stuck, but also 5 different herbal extracts that are specifically made to put in there to help you target water retention. So it gets your body to pee out. So it's essentially a natural diuretic.
Do you just take it for one day and you look different the next day, or does it take like a couple days?
No. It kicks in within like 3 hours. If you're on an empty stomach, it works faster, but it also depends on your face, right? Are you dealing with water retention? Are you puffy? Because if you're fat, you're not going to see too much of a result. But beyond the comfort that it gives you from being able to digest those foods down there, it also makes you feel better because potassium and magnesium, they have other benefits as well as the vitamin C in there. So it's not just a debloating supplement, but it's very much targeting that water retention issue, and it's giving you a diuretic that doesn't have any side effects. And on top of that, it's all natural. So there's nothing artificial in there. And even the color and the taste and the smell, all of it is all natural. So that's the beauty of Debloat, and it's unlike anything else in the market.
But what are some things that people can do that are more long-term?
Yeah, I think that's a lot more of a reasonable question because, as much as people want to have like instant gratification, it doesn't work that way. Looksmaxxing is experimental, so you have to keep trying new things to find what exactly suits you. So of course, universally, as I mentioned, losing body fat percentage, that's a very long process. And figuring out definitely the hairstyle that suits you. So, you just got a hairstyle, you just got a haircut, you're still getting it down, but of course the barber's to blame here. But aside from hairstyle, as well as figuring out, what is it that you're dealing with? What weakness do you have? Do you have under eye bags? That is something that I dealt with for a very, very long time. Do you have bad skin? Are you going to go about eating the foods that are right for you? Are you lactose intolerant and still eating dairy? So that you have to ask yourself questions and you have to go about things very logically. So
of those more long-term things, was there any one that you did to work on improving your look, and how long did it take roughly?
Oh my God. There's a lot of stuff that I applied and took me a very, very long time, but it wasn't the method that took time to apply. It was figuring out where my weakness lied. So I had a lot of issues, aside from figuring out my hairstyle and being experimental. Like you just got a haircut and it kind of messed you up. Like I was dealing with a lot of hair issues. But beyond that, it was little things like my eye bags. I always looked tired constantly. I started using caffeinated under eye balm for that. Another thing, there's other methods for eye bags, but another thing would be like for my skin. I was dealing with a lot of acne when I was younger. It was so bad and it kept coming back. And so I had to experiment with all kinds of methods, skincares, and even Accutane. I don't know if you know about Accutane, but it's a drug that you take, you get it prescribed. Out in the US, you get it prescribed, but in third world countries, it's pretty much like candy. You can get it off the shelf. So I was taking that stuff like candy. And it's, has its side effects. But to sit here and say that Accutane isn't a miracle thing for people that have acne is just, Accutane has saved so many people, including myself.
How long were you on Accutane?
I was on Accutane for a whole year. And then I did it again a year after because my acne came back. And then I figured out how to actually stop my acne from coming back, which is where we're at right now.
I heard there were other effects with Accutane, like some people report that their nose gets smaller. And
yeah. So that's called the Accutane nose. So the Accutane nose is this whole idea that like their nose have gone smaller and the lips have gone bigger. So the lips get bigger because of dryness. Well, what Accutane does is it diminishes the pores on your face. It gets rid of those oil pores that create that sebum, which clogs your pores and gets you that acne. So when you're on Accutane, what you're going to see is a lot more dryness. And not just that, it affects everywhere. Your internal organs, your scalp, you'll literally be showering less because your hair is less oily. So it affects your entire body just to get rid of acne, and it works very, very well. So I highly recommend people to at least consider Accutane if nothing's working for them. That's what was happening with me. But the issue is after you come off Accutane, you have to figure out how to maintain your skin because it's going to go back to what it once was. It won't be as bad as after puberty, of course. But with Accutane, there's interesting stuff about it, which is actually going on a low dosage, which is what I did. I didn't go on a high dose. I went on a low dose that was very prolonged. That was the difference. And I also experimented with it. I started doing days on and off. It's called the Hollywood dose, where you take it like even once a week. I know models that do that. They take Accutane literally once a week and their skin's always going to be clear forever. That's just how it works. But I personally stopped taking Accutane. I worked on my diet, focused on what I was eating, less processed foods, less dairy. Some people say dairy is amazing for you. Personally, it's given me a lot of acne. So I've cut down on dairy a little bit. I think like half the world is allergic to dairy. I wasn't. I took a food allergy test and also like a food sensitivity test, which I highly recommend if you're trying to figure out what foods to avoid. And you pretty much just like pluck your hair out or something and they give you like a test result. So I figured out what foods to steer away from and foods to eat for better skin.
What's a beauty secret that women gatekeep from men?
Volufiline. And if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much this substance. I believe I bought it from France, but I did research before doing so. And what it does is, once applied to skin, it produces or it promotes the production of fat under that layer of skin. Now, how much fat is questionable because I believe it's a very, very little amount. But the studies that were done for it, as biased as they were, showed substantial results. So much so that girls were taking the stuff, mixing it in lotion and applying it on their bodies in areas where they wanted more fat, right? Their bosoms and their chests. So I was like, okay, wait, I can experiment with this. And I started applying it on my upper lip and my under eye bags. And then I specifically started doing it only for my under eye bags. And I noticed some change there. So beyond the hydration that it gives your under eyes, it also helps promote fat growth under there. So much so that it was enough to give an effect. The under eye is a very, very thin skin layer. So any minimal change here is going to show. So funny thing is, when people, especially kids, come up to me asking me about like help for their under eye bags, where they still haven't even developed, I always recommend them, caffeinated under eye balms, Voluflene, means that are pretty much, they're not hazardous. You can call it cope. But at the end of the day, it is something that they could do. And funny enough, I had a doctor react to one of my one-on-one videos. It was a free one-on-one that I gave to a kid, explaining to him, okay, look, you're still young, you can experiment with Voluflene. And the doctor goes, hey, the only way you can improve is with filler. It's that bad that we have doctors recommending 15-year-olds to go about injecting filler in their under eye area to improve their under eye area. Filler that, migrates, that stays in your face forever.
So this kind of goes into a broader concept in the Looksmaxxing community, which is softmaxing, kind of the things we've talked about, like natural supplementation or losing weight or like putting, eye serums to grow your eyelashes. And then there's hard maxing, which is more like surgeries or taking steroids, taking different types of peptides. What is like hard maxing and what's your kind of philosophy on it?
Yeah, so soft maxing is, as you mentioned, things that aren't exactly risky. Hard maxing is breaking that sort of line and that thinking and going towards methods that are going to yield you results for sure. Now, whether or not those results are appealing and going to suit you, that's questionable, but they are going to give you results. So there are a lot, you could think of it like high risk, high reward, if that's how you want to think of it. And guys, surprisingly, are willing to risk it all for those results. Now, I will say injectables like HGH and steroids aren't going to get you any bone growth. It might improve your physique if that's what you're looking for. But to Looksmax with injectables is very questionable, even peptides. Of course, if it's little things like your coloring and your weight, I'd understand. But anything regarding bone growth is definitely questionable when it comes to hard maxing. But, we have surgeries out there that involve implants, jaw advancements, all sorts.
It's two common ones that are kind of like memed about, joked about in the community are like thumb pulling and like bone smashing.
Yeah.
What is bone smashing?
Well, it's in the name, bone smashing. You're literally smashing your bones in an attempt to produce bone growth in that localized area. So it falls in line with Wolff's Law, where when you apply stress to a bone, the body reacts by producing more bone in that area. So it's flawed because one, the result isn't exactly appealing. It's usually just inflammation. Two, even if you did get results, it would be asymmetrical. And three, for the most part, people that are doing it, their issue isn't even their bones in that area. So a lot of people will be like hitting their cheekbones here as if that's going to make them look better. Their issue isn't their cheekbones. They're simply trying to mask what the real problem is, which is recession.
What is thumb pulling?
Thumb pulling is even worse. It's, in my opinion, I wouldn't say worse because you're not talking about nerve damage here, but I think it's ridiculous. It's simply putting your thumbs in your mouth, the palate of your mouth, and applying pressure enough for it to expand. Similar to like expansion devices. Have you ever seen like MSE, MSRP? Essentially, it's just like means of expanding your palate, widening your palate so that you have more room for your tongue. And some of them actually not just widen their palate, but believe it can bring about forward growth. So you have things that are like even more severe, like towel pulling, where they're putting a towel in their mouth and they're pulling forward.
And what are they trying to do here?
Forward growth, really.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, it's essentially just like the projection of your face. So like you have, a tighter hyoid under your jaw, better nasal projection, It's no longer dorsal hump when you have the right projection, things of that sort.
So on the hard maxing, is there any methods that actually like yield good results?
Oh, yeah.
Like surgery, peptides, injections?
I mean, it depends on your goal, right? If you're looking to get tanner and you take melanotan too, okay. If you want to lose weight and you take retatrutide, okay. If you want to, become Chad and you have a grocery list of all these surgeries you want to do, I'm going to question it because, hey, not all these surgeries are going to actually ascend you. And only like 0.01% of people can logically apply certain surgeries the right way with the right surgeon, yielding the right results. A lot of people come out uncanny, botched. Some people go too far with it and they end up looking like aliens. For instance, Jordan Barrett, he's not a great example because he didn't actually get surgery. People say he got buccal fat removal. That's arguable. He is extremely skinny. But he does look uncanny at times. So uncanny would be uneasy looking, just like not so natural looking. So the most important thing is maintaining a natural look. And if you go about surgeries the right way, you can attain this. And if you're coming from a place where you really can't go wrong, it's understandable. The only issue would be like if you're good looking and you're trying to get surgery and you think that it's going to ascend you, if it's going to take you to that next tier, right? I could talk about my friend, Clavicular. He's a peer of mine in the space and he's also influential in this Looksmaxxing stuff. And he himself is trying to get surgery. And not just any surgery. As a good looking guy, he's trying to get something called Lefort 1. It was originally Lefort 2. And if you don't know what Lefort 1 is, as we talked about jaw advancement, he's looking to get further upper jaw advancement and then a lower jaw advancement as well.
So a double jaw surgery?
It would be basically a double jaw surgery. And we call it Lefort 1 because he's working with the first base down here. Lefort 2 is the upper base, but that's far riskier. Now, surprisingly, Lefort 1 doesn't have that many complications when it comes to risks. Now, whether or not he'll end up botched, that's the question here. Not whether or not he'll make it through the surgery. He will. There's not a doubt about that. But he's also combining the surgery with rhinoplasty. So he's looking to get his nose, I believe, not so upturned. He's trying to make it a bit more downturned. And he's also trying to get facial implants along with all this. So he's getting rhinoplasty, facial implants, and a Lefort 1 and jaw advancement all in one surgery. Extremely risky.
So he's going to look like a completely different person, theoretically.
Yeah. Huh. And it'll be weird, especially in the beginning, because there's going to be a lot of inflammation. So God knows how he's going to look like later on. But honestly, best of luck to him. We can't sit here and say, oh, well, it's extremely rash of him to do that because everyone, it's his body. At the end of the day, he can do what he wants. But do I think he's being greedy? Yeah, I think he's being greedy. And he's willing to risk, ending up botched for the chance of ascending.
So why do you think guys are so, I guess you could say, desperate to take these risky measures of hard maxing? Like someone like Clavicular, for instance, I know that he has a following, so it probably helps his brand, helps his image, but he's a very attractive, tall, muscular guy. Like, why do people go to these extremes, you think?
People like Clav are everywhere. We see this every single day. People like taking risks. They get a thrill out of it. He's getting a thrill out of this. Very simple. Maybe you could say he's insecure. Maybe you could say he has, body dysmorphia. At the end of the day, it is, like I said, it's his body. He can do what he wants. But it just comes down to people who want to take risks. And even if he ends up botched, I told him, look, man, if you're going to end up botched, what are you going to do about it? And he said he doesn't really care if he ends up botched. At least he tried. That's how some people think. He's looking at looks as a currency, as he should. But do I agree that he's taking it far? I believe he is.
So some of these hard maxing methods, is there anything that you've done yourself? Or is there anything that maybe you've considered doing?
I've considered peptides, much like anyone else would, just because they're a bit safer. And I'm not really talking about like retatrutide and GHKCU. I'm talking about something a bit more tame like melanotan too, because I'm very pale. And to get the color that I want, it takes a lot of tanning and it could age me. It's funny because athletes that are extremely pale, that are forced to do sports outside in the sunlight, take melanotan too. It builds a barrier. The reason why we have melanin, the reason why we look tan is because our body is defending those UV rays from the sun. So by taking melanotan too, it makes it safer for me to tan and it also makes it faster for me to tan. And the side effects are a bit of nausea in the moment, It's very, very little, and you get used to that, quite so frankly. And on top of that, melanotan-2 is the only side effect that it's linked to is melanoma, right? Skin cancer. But it's very, very little. That linkage is very little, and it's only there because people that take melanotan-2 are tanning. So if you tan, you're gonna be exposed to skin cancer. So I believe melanotan-2 is like the only one I've considered so far, just because it makes a bit more sense as opposed to just tanning and getting that light. But I didn't take it. I don't tan naturally. I don't think I will for quite some time. Yeah, every now and then I'll get a tan occasionally, but I've just been self-tanning. So,
do you think surgeries for men will be more normalized in the future? And do you think more and more women are going to keep getting surgeries?
Yeah, women are way ahead of us when it comes to this. I mean, just look at South Korea. Girls there are getting surgeries on their birthdays as a present. It's crazy. Nowadays, it's becoming normalized, a lot more accepted. All these guys get surgeries, but they don't disclose that. Like, Jack, if you were an actor, you were a celebrity, or you were someone that was known, you had people around you, and you got surgery for something to change about yourself, it would seem a bit feminine, so much so that you wouldn't disclose it. But now people are disclosing their surgeries. They're disclosing their steroid use. They're disclosing these things.
Do you think a guy caring about their looks is insecure?
No, but it could stem from insecurities. Like, it depends. Like, are you being an insecure freak?
Do you think it's feminine?
Are you, I mean, any emotion that's very far, like to the point where you're literally crying over it, I would consider that feminine. But it's not feminine to be mindful of things that are, like, you're going to be insecure for a reason, most likely. But some guys are insecure over things that they shouldn't be insecure about. Like, I know guys that are like 6'2" insecure about their height. Like,
so if you were dating a girl, for instance, and maybe you were getting your eyebrows laminated, or you were getting like eyelash extensions, something along those lines, like, would you tell the girl about that?
I wouldn't do either of those, but I know what you're trying to say. I mean, I wouldn't go up to her and tell her. I would just do it, and if she realizes, I'll tell her, yeah, I do that. Like, I did it. And if she questions it, I'll just laugh in her face, because what do you mean? Like, how is it feminine for a guy to improve something that's clearly going to help him pull more? Some guys like not saying that it's feminine. Some people say that it's gay. It's so funny to me. Like, they'll say, oh, that's gay. That's feminine. How is it gay or feminine if I'm doing something that's going to make me pull more? If I'm doing it to have your bitch look at me, like, how is that gay? Think about that. What's gay is going to the gym, going on roids, just to have other guys look at you. Because the girls don't give a fuck. But no one says that's gay. That's not gay. Lifting weights isn't gay. But taking care of your hair, making sure your coloring's on point, that's gay?
Yeah, it's interesting that men say negative things about improving your look because it's really just you're healthy.
I'm all for the gym, right? The gym is nice. It gives you appeal. It gives you confidence. But like, the same guys that will sit here and make fun of people for doing these methods, whatever it is, self-tanning, dyeing your eyebrows, whatever it is, those little things, caring about your face, they'll call you gay, but then they'll go take roids, hit the gym every single day for their gym bros to look at their body and compliment them. Like, girls care more about the face and the body.
So how would you, or maybe the people in your community, Looksmaxxing, kind of rank the order of importance? Like, is it your height that people care about? Is it your face? Is it your physique?
Face is at the very, very top. And then we have height. And then we have status. And then we have body. And then we have money. And then we have personality. But all of these are at the very, very top. They're all prioritized. It's just like different prioritization. It's not like other spheres, like the alpha red pill sphere. They'll put game at the very top. They'll put, your confidence at the very top, your physique and your money.
Game is just like your ability to talk with women.
Yeah, like those tactics and all that stuff. Like, oh, you have to make sure you walk in the room like you're a man. Like those stupid, those videos.
Got it. So if face is most important, like if a guy has a perfect face, let's just say, I think the community says true Adam, and he is 5 feet tall, is he going to do better than a guy who's a 6 out of 10 that is 6 feet tall?
What the hell, bro? 5''s crazy. 5''s crazy. No, you got to give me a better number than that, Jack.
Okay, maybe 5'. What's the average height in America? 5'8"? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the 5'8" guy is going to do way better.
What if he's 5'5"?
I mean, it depends on, what are you talking about? The quality of his life or like?
His ability to attract women, get respect from people.
So you're talking about a 10 out of 10 guy who's 5'5" and a 6 out of 10 guy who's 6 foot. I still think the 5 out of 5'5" guy could compete really well. It is short, but Jack, I don't think you understand. Like a 10 out of 10 face is crazy. If you're 5'5", even 5'4", 5'3" with a 10 out of 10 face, it can get you so far. On social media, no one can see your height. So you have people that are like 5'6" pulling crazy girls. And once you lock them in, it's like, it's a lot easier. But like, I will say that the guy who's 5'5" could probably fraud. He could put on some lifts and reach 5'7". You know what I mean? So I think he'd do better than the 6 foot guy. But yeah, maybe in the club it'd be different though. Like in a club setting, because you'd be too short to be able to see. Like it'd be too dark. But it's just different wins on a different level. You know what I mean? But it's very hard to come by a 10 out of 10 face. That's like crazy.
So is there anyone that you know or anyone online that is considered a perfect 10 out of 10?
Oh, that's crazy. I've only ever met like one person that was nearing 10 out of 10. There's no one that's actually a 10 out of 10, but it was very, very close. He recently lost like a lot of weight. You know him. I collabed with him recently. He lost like a lot of weight.
This is someone you know personally?
Yeah, he looks like Damon Salvatore. Cookie King.
Cookie King. Yeah, I would say he's a 10 out of 10.
Demir, he's crazy. It's like the Turkish genes, you know?
A second ago, you said this idea of frauding, kind of like the male equivalent of catfishing. How can a guy fraud to look their best online?
Okay, so we're talking about online here. So it'd be just like lighting and the right images. You got to look natural in your images. You can't be posting gym rat pictures. That's just like unappealing. You got to appear effortless, and you got to make sure that, you know, it's angles that are suitable for your face. You also don't want to go too far. You don't want to be putting filters or anything crazy, right? You're not girls. You're not going to be doing makeup. So it's just things that are essentially just like the most ideal setting for you to present the way that you look. And if you're able to master that, you can find yourself matching and doing a whole lot better on dating apps and even on Instagram.
What are some ways that a guy could maybe fraud in person?
In person would be like very like little things. Like you can go extreme with it, wearing like shoulder pads. That's like really weird, but like you could do that. Especially if you're lacking in your shoulders. Some guys wear height boosters. Honestly, it makes sense if you're going to somewhere like the club. If you're going out with a girl that's extremely tall, it would make sense. What else? You just don't want to be caught lacking with those, right?
Do you know anyone that frauds?
Oh yeah, left and right, like everywhere. People that you wouldn't expect fraud. There's makeup. Some guys apply makeup. Even actors, celebrities, people that go on camera are always applying makeup.
Do you think this will be the new normal, like 20, 30 years from now, that guys will care as much about their looks as women do?
No. Maybe a whole lot more. But like, let's assume that everyone gets exposed to Looksmaxxing. A couple things are going to happen here, right? Everyone knows about the ideology. Everyone knows to, take care of their appearance. Everyone knows the importance of their appearance. What's going to happen is, one, there's going to be a filtration that happens. The fact of the matter is, even if everyone were to Looksmax, there's going to be genetic limitations. So no matter how much you try to Looksmax, maybe you can go from a 4 to a 5 to a 6. That's it. Everyone is going to be capped by their genetics. So that's one. 2, hypergamy is still going to be in effect. So assuming everyone Looksmaxes and everyone looks good, what's going to happen? Suddenly, the battleground of looks is no longer relevant. It's the bare minimum now. Just like money is not as big of a factor nowadays because of social media. And as we spoke about earlier, Western women. What happens is a new trait comes out. Something else comes out. Something else that other guys have to know. Oh, the guys have to know how to work with AI. I don't know. Something like weird in the future. All right. And the third thing you could say is also a genetic limitation, but it's not about how they look. Rather, it's their mind, right? Their intelligence. How high is their IQ? I wouldn't say the test itself, the IQ test, but rather, how smart are they to be able to look at things logically and to apply them, to know what suits their face, to know what suits their presentation, to know what looks good and what doesn't, and to know what methods are going to botch them and what methods are going to work.
So to give people an overview, Looksmaxxing is kind of considered the black pill there was a movement in 2020 that was maybe considered the red pill. And then before all this happened, it was the blue pill. Can you kind of give me a breakdown of the difference of these philosophies? And I think there might be one pill that you haven't mentioned yet that's more important than all of these.
So the blue pill is what the media feeds you. You know, it's regurgitating this idea that you just got to be yourself. You're perfect the way you are. There's someone out there for you. And I like to call it the Disney pill because that's what the media tells us. That's what Disney and all their movies give us. You know, a frog that's nice and the princess that gives it a kiss. All right. The red pill is a bit more realistic. And as you mentioned, it emerged in like 2020 with all these alpha male guys. And it simply puts game, money, physique at the very, very top, things that you have to work for as a man, right? So they believe that you have to earn your value, which is a lot more realistic. And it puts personality all the way at the very, very bottom, surprisingly. And then you have the black pill. And the black pill is this view that really explains why you could be red pilled and another guy could be red pilled and you could have worked for the exact same thing and prioritized the same exact things, but he could have an edge on you, and that's because of the way he looks. That's what the black pill explains. And the black pill essentially reorients all of these priorities, and it puts face at the very, very top, then height, then frame, then status, then money, then physique, then personality, and it's all together. Personality isn't at the bottom like on the red pill. It's at the very, very top with everything else. So everything matters in the black pill, including your looks. But we put face at the very, very top. That's the black pill in its essence. There's a misconstrued version of it too, where people believe that the black pill is essentially just like determinism, where it's like, listen, you're stuck with where you're at, with your genes, and all that matters are looks. But this is a misconstrued version, I believe.
Would you say the black pill is the most realistic philosophy of reality, or is there like a pill that's harder to swallow, that's more important?
Yeah, I disagree with the black pill. I'm definitely like a mix of like multiple things, I would say, but there is a pill that people don't really talk about, and it's the IQ pill. Not necessarily the IQ test itself, but rather intelligence. So that is something that filters out people in general. And if you want to talk particularly about Looksmaxxing, it filters out who can logically take things from that philosophy and apply it the right way. So we talked about earlier how like, what would it be like if everyone was exposed to Looksmaxxing? If everyone was exposed to Looksmaxxing, the IQ pill would come into effect. Even if everyone could max out, despite their genes, the way they looked, how are you going to logically apply the right methods? How are you going to go about, putting together the right course of action? How are you going to get that money to afford all that stuff? You know what I mean? So you need to have a level of intelligence, and some of it is genetic, sadly. So that is something that a lot of people don't talk about, and I think it's very controversial.
So would you say looks matter more or intelligence?
I would say it's a mix of both, I'm not going to lie, because as a man, you could have your looks, but if there's nothing up there, it's like, it's over for you. You know what I mean?
So they're pretty much equal?
I would say, honestly, I think they're equal. I'm not gonna lie.
But if you're good looking...
I think you feel it better. I think you feel like it's not equal when you're younger because you're in your 20s, but when you're in your 30s and 40s and you're older and you've aged, how are you gonna make the most out of your looks? Because there's means of doing it. And you can't do that if you don't have intelligence. It's like having looks and no self-esteem. Of course, you can be good looking, have that confidence from that positive feedback, the halo effect working in your favor, but eventually it's not going to serve you anymore once you reach your 30s and 40s. All these models, they fall off for a reason.
Okay, you have a very fascinating perspective on the world, and I think that this community is only going to grow larger. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting interview for people to kind of see all the things that go into it and kind of give their thoughts on if guys who are doing this are insecure, if it's healthy. So guys, let me know your feedback in the comments. But last question here, Kay. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You have a million problems until you have one problem, and it's a health problem. Then you only have one problem. So health is wealth. And it's a little bit irrelevant to the whole topic of Looksmaxxing, but I want to leave the viewers with something here. They need to understand that you can have all the looks in the world, all the money in the world, all the love in the world, all the status. You can be in the top 5% of men. But if you don't have your health in check, then what's the point? You're missing out on all of it. you can't enjoy it. So do get your health in check, and then you can start focusing on other facets in your life, not just looks. Other things that'll elevate the quality of your life.
But health is number one.
But health is number one, along with religion. But that's a whole separate topic.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, everyone, this has been your guest, Kareem Shami, K Shami. This is the Jack Neel Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack. It's been a pleasure. Great conversation.